Today I'm going to speak about machine learning methods in detecting Alzheimer's disease from speech and language. And first of all, I want to tell what is Alzheimer's disease, although I'm sure a lot of you know what it is. It's an irreversible neurodegenerative disease that affects and destroys our brain cells of people, and as a result, a person has a reduced cognitive and functional ability, emotional changes such as, for example, depression, changes in behavior, and even the decrease in physical abilities. So, sorry about that. Now you can see it. So Bill Gates actually quite recently said on LinkedIn that it is hard to overstate how important finding a reliable, affordable, and easy-to-use diagnostic is for stopping Alzheimer's. And this is actually true. And because all the tools, diagnosis tools that exist nowadays, they are either extremely expensive and time-consuming, or even invasive. So at the Winterlight labs, we are developing a tool that helps detecting Alzheimer's from speech and language. So it is supposed to be an easy-to-use, fast, and non-invasive tool. I want to show you a short video that is showing, presenting our product and how it works. So could you please start the video?
Obviously it's a garbage. And on the floor,
it may not look or sound like it, but Joan Deason is taking a test that would detect if she has dementia. The tablet-based assessment is the creation of Winterlight Labs, a Toronto-based startup.
Cat chasing a mouse, and there's a lady there.
By analyzing speech, they can identify cognitive impairment associated with dementia.
Tell me everything you see in this picture after the beep.
He looks like he's yelling back at her, which I guess.
So we look at things from the content of your speech, what words you're using, your syntax, your grammar.
When someone takes the Winterlight assessment, their voice recording is made into a plain text transcript. Long pauses, repetition, and heavy use of pronouns are all marked by the Winterlight algorithms. The Winterlight test takes only a few minutes to complete, whereas the paper-based assessment can range anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour.
So as you can see, we extract certain features from human speech, and those features are actually of different modalities. So as a first modality, that would be a group of acoustic features, such as, for example, pitch, energy of voice, pauses, durations of pauses, and the specific voice representations, such as, for example, MFCCs. The other group of features that we extract from speech are based not on the speech itself, not on the acoustics, but on the associated language. So for that, we need the so-called automatic speech recognition system that, first of all, transcribes the speech into the language, into transcripts of language. And then we extract linguistic features from those transcripts. And linguistic features could show the level of syntactic complexity, semantics, what exactly was said, lexical complexity. Those features could be extracted. You can do that yourself if you are interested, using some open source Python libraries, such as, for example, PyAudio analysis for extracting acoustic features, or Spacey Stanford NLP library for extracting dependency, consistency parsers, and all the associated features. And for automatic speech recognition, there is also the open source tool that is called Cody, and of course many commercial tools as well. But it's not enough just to extract features from speech. We should do something additionally with that to make the actually sophisticated system that can detect and classify Alzheimer versus a healthy person. So how to do that? I'm going to tell you today about one machine learning model that we have developed at Winterlight Labs that is called consensus network. It shows quite good results in classifying Alzheimer's. So the main motivation for this system is a simple fact that the features, the representations of speech could be multidimensional. So we can extract features from that come from different modalities, such as I said already, acoustic, linguistic, and so on. And those modalities, they actually do not overlap a lot. But each of those reflect changes in human cognitive abilities. So this is the motivation for consensus network, and what we try to do, we try to find, as the name says, we try to find some kind of consensus between those modalities, and using that help to increase the classification performance. Because otherwise there are two approaches that can work, but they have certain limitations. The first approach would be to just incorporate more clinical data, but the limitation for that is that it's an expensive path. And the second approach could be to calculate more features from speech. But again, it's a time-consuming method that requires collaboration with the domain expert, and in the end, you can it can result in extremely complex models that overfit to existing data, to training data. So consensus networks. You can see on the graph on the screen that consensus network consists of several modules. This is the model that is motivated by generative adversarial networks in some sense. Can I see, please? Can you please raise the hand if you have heard of GANs? Okay. Oh, nice. So quite a lot of people know about GANs. I will just briefly say for those who don't know what it is. Generative adversarial networks, they consist of components of a generator, and generator generates the sample, tries to generate the sample that is indistinguishable from the real life sample of data, while discriminator tries to distinguish that artificially generated sample from the real sample. And this is how the model is trained to create something which is very similar to what happens in reality. So our consensus network is inspired by GANs, but it does not use generator, just adversarial training, just discriminator. And as you can see in the picture, it consists of features of different modalities, those blue rectangulars in the bottom. Then there are components of e-physicians that convert each modality into a low-dimensional representation, which is called interpretation in this picture. And interpretations, it's a distilled representation of the subject, of the person, from a modality-specific perspective. And additionally, we have a noise modality. I will tell later why it is important, a classifier, and a discriminator. So how the actual model works, it has a three-step algorithm. In the first step, e-physicians try to produce indistinguishable representation for each modality, and this representation should be low-dimensional. On the next step, discriminators recognize modal-specific information that is retained in those representations. And finally, classifier trains the network to make a correct decision. In terms of optimization, in terms of loss function, on the first step, we maximize the discriminator loss across modalities. On the second step, we minimize the loss of discriminator. And on the third step, we minimize the classifier's loss across modalities. So the full loss function is showed to you in the middle of this slide. There are several tricks that help improve performance in these models, and those are three main things. First, noise modality that I have mentioned already. Second is the method of cooperative optimization, and the third technique is choosing natural modalities instead of random or any other that you have could have chosen. So okay, let's speak a little bit in more details about each of those techniques. So noise. We have done several experiments trying to understand whether there is an additional value of noise, and it seems that yes, if you add to your input features an additional modality which is just Gaussian noise, it helps to increasing performance by approximately 4%. And we believe that it is because noise modality forces discriminators to study the details and not just pay attention to artificial statistics of each modality. Okay, next technique. Next technique is a cooperative optimization. And this is kind of a technical hack. We tried to, during experiments again, we tried to backpropagate gradients not just to the level of interpretations, but to the back to e-physicians. And we realized that this technique as well helps improving the performance by more than 10%. When we use that cooperative optimization technique, it seems that representations start containing more complementary information. So some of the information within representations overlap a bit, but it is complementary data that helps detecting the disease, which is actually important for detecting the disease. Okay, next trick is natural modalities. So we have done the experiment with trying to divide data into random modalities. And the question here was whether the natural modalities as we understand them, the acoustics, semantics, syntax, and the lexics, that they actually have some sense that is useful for classification performance. And it seems that it is actually the case, because in terms of classification performance, when we use natural modalities, the performance increases by more than 2% from the best performing set of random modalities. And the last thing that I want to mention about these models' characteristics is that it is important to have an agreement, an actual consensus between modalities, and not just use as many features of coming from different modalities and just concatenate them into one group. And again, experimental results showed that when we just use all the same features, but without this consensus network, just feed all the features without any structure into a machine learning model, the performance is not that good as when we try to use a consensus network and actually look for an agreement between all those modalities. And the results you can see as well on the screen. So what else is interesting and important about this model? It is possible to use it in a semi-supervised settings. Why? Because it consists of the consensus mechanism in addition to classifier. And if obviously classifier needs some labeled data in order to classify, the consensus mechanism does not need any labeled data. It's just a discriminator that tries to distinguish the modality-specific information, and the modality comes from the input features. So it does not need any labels, and in that sense, it can be used in a semi-supervised learning. But again, so I tried to convince you that this model is good enough, but in addition to just showing how good it is, we compared it to other state-of-the-art classifiers that are used in the previous literature for Alzheimer's detection. And we have compared our model, which is showed as the CN consensus network here in the results table, to previous classifiers such as SVM, random forest, multi-layer perceptron, and others. And it shows a significantly better performance than any of those. So it makes me certain that the model is actually good enough. And we have a couple of publications about this model, which you can find in the author resources online. Okay, but now let's go back to the automatic speech recognition effect. As I mentioned before, we extract transcripts from our speech samples. And the quality of those transcripts actually depends on the accuracy of automatic speech recognition system. And the automatic speech recognition system, or ASR for short, is not necessarily a completely accurate system. It can make errors, it can not recognize speech properly. And I just want to show you a short clip of how these problems can affect people's life in real-life situations. So could you please start?
What's the buttons?
Oh no, they installed voice recognition technology in this lift. I heard about this.
Voice recognition technology? In a lift? In Scotland? You ever tried voice recognition technology?
No.
They don't do Scottish accents.
11.
Could you please repeat that?
11.
11. 11.
11.
Could you please repeat that?
11.
Whose idea was this? You need to try an American accent. 11. 11.
That sounds Irish, not American.
What, doesn't it?
11. 11. 11. 11.
You're just saying it the same way.
I'm going to keep saying it until I understand Scottish, all right? 11. 11. 11. 11.
I'll just take his head out of your cow.
This is a voice-activated elevator. Please state which floor you would like to go to in a clear and calm manner.
Okay, so as you can see, the problems with ASR can make our life very difficult, actually, even if it is not an Alzheimer's detection system. But back to our the use of ASR in our assessment. So as you can see here in the picture, we ask people to describe the picture they see on the screen, and then ASR produces the transcript of what they say. So, for example, in this transcript, there is a repetition of "and," the red token in the bottom. The person says and that's the repetition of the word, which is important actually for detecting Alzheimer's. And if ASR does not recognize that this word was repeated, we miss a certain important information. So ASR is definitely important, but what is the actual value, how important it is and how it can affect our results? That's the research question that we try to answer in our recent project. What I show you here is on the left, you can see the graph of different levels of simulated ASR errors and their effect on classification performance, which is shown as the F1 score. So ASR can have three types of errors: deletions, insertions, and substitutions. Insertions happen when ASR inserts a certain word which was not said by a person. Substitution is when a certain word that was said is substituted with something else, so the ASR misrecognized word as something else. And deletion is when the word that person actually said was just missed and nothing was produced as an ASR output. So interestingly, the added amount of insertions and substitutions, insertion and substitution errors did not significantly affect the performance, and the effect was similar to the effect of just adding a random noise of that same error. The level of noise is shown in red, and the level of substitutions and insertions are two lines in the two lines, upper lines in this graph. And the level of deletions, when we add additional deletion errors, the classification performance decreases a lot. It decreases significantly with the number of errors of around 60%. It decreases from 80 to 65% of classification performance, which is a lot. So why this happens like that? We try to analyze it in a little bit more details, and we realized that when we add a certain amount of deletion errors to the transcript, artificial deletion errors, the syntactic features, and compare how this affect the level of change in syntactic and lexical features. Syntactic features seems to be robust to such modifications. The change of syntactic feature values is quite small, while the change to lexical features is very high. It is approximately almost an additional standard deviation to the original value. But on the other hand, those lower changes of syntactic features, they result in much stronger effect, a significantly stronger effect on classification performance. And this is an interesting outcome of the project. So from the one perspective, it's just deletion errors that affect the performance, and those deletion errors affect the most the syntactic complexity features in terms of classification performance. So these are the results that we just a couple of days ago presented in Hong Kong at the EMNLP, and if you're interested in more details, you can, of course, read our paper. So main takeaways that I want you to remember after my talk are the following. So features of different modalities extracted from human speech and language are useful for detecting various cognitive impairments such as Alzheimer's disease. Consensus network improves classification performance by reaching an agreement between modalities. Noise modality is important if you want to improve the performance of classification. Cooperative optimization as well is important trick that leads to a better classification. Modalities, they should not be random. They should be natural as they arise in the human speech, acoustic, syntax, semantics, and so on. Agreement between modalities is important, and it is more important for performance comparing to simple combination of features of different modalities. Consensus networks model is able to work in a semi-supervised settings in addition to a fully supervised, and in the end, ASR errors may affect classification performance in non-obvious ways, as you have seen just now. Thank you. These are my contacts. Feel free to contact me with your questions. Thank you.